While my opponents may say that banning books does not interfere with constitutional rights and that banning books can protect kids from cursing, my teammates and I have said that kids can read what they please because they are protected by the First Amendment. Books teach kids life lessons, and that schools are public institutions, so they do not have the right to ban books. And books also allow students to mature. According to an article in the Pacifican, proponents for book banning claim that some subjects are simply too inappropriate for certain age readers who may not be emotionally or mentally mature enough to understand the book's content. And this claim is true. Some kids aren't mature enough emotionally or mentally, but while reading books that expand their knowledge and understanding of the world around them, they will mature mentally over time. Books that are being banned, usually within the content, talk about alcohol, drugs, violence, offensive language, etc. School administrators ban these books because they may not be appropriate for that age level, but they need to keep these books because kids will ask questions and expand their knowledge of the world around them. This will allow kids to mature mentally, and they will carry this knowledge with them their whole life. My old school that I went to, they would ban books. And I remember one time I wanted to just read a book about animals, but they didn't have very many books. And I would ask the librarian why there weren't very many books on animals. She said it's because some pictures weren't appropriate for us to see, like pictures of victims of sharks or animal attacks. And then when I went to Prairie, I had access to so many more books, and I read books about almost anything. My brain was so much more mature mentally, and by the time I was in 4th grade, I was at an 8th grade reading level. I mostly read informational books, and in shark books they would talk about bones and blood loss, and I would ask my teachers what some of the words meant. They would tell me, and now I only use most of that information in my health class. In the same article, The Pacifican, it says that books allow us to explore worlds and experiences we may never come across in our own lives. So even if kids, as they get older, never encounter certain situations, they will have that knowledge. Recently, I read the book Hidden Girl by Shima Hall. It's an autobiography about how when Shima was 8 years old, she was sold into slavery by her parents. I've always known slavery is wrong, and I thought it was banned in the Civil War, but when I read the book from the point of view of an actual illegal domestic slave, it not only made me understand how wrong it is, but how other cultures accept certain things. Shima grew up in Egypt, and slavery is illegal, but it is widely accepted. This made me understand what was acceptable in other cultures that may not be acceptable or traditional here. If this book was banned, kids would not have similar questions that I did. They wouldn't know slavery isn't okay, and what actual enslaved people think about each time they wait on their master's hand and foot. A school's main purpose is to prepare kids to go out into the world and learn about the past, other cultures, etc. Banning books does not protect kids. It only sets them up for a life they may not be ready for. They won't become deeper thinkers. In conclusion, people may say that kids shouldn't read about certain inappropriate topics in books. But it's the world we live in today, it's reality, and it's exactly what they need to know about.
My opponent may say that books allow students to mature, but we disagree. They do not allow them to mature. In a study published by Stephen Kirsch and Paul Oslak in Media Psychology, they found out that boys who read violent books recommend more retaliation to someone who has done them harm. This is significant because it shows that the boys were being more immature after they read the violent books. We should ban the books because if immature students read more violent books, then they would retaliate more and be more violent. Books like that should not be allowed in public schools, and should not be allowed in public schools because should not be allowed in the public schools because of their bad influence on immature readers. Some books may help kids mature, but most violent books that need to be banned do not. They make the children more immature than they already are.
As children grow older, they begin to pick up whatever they watch, read, or hear. A parent has the control to turn off the TV if they feel it is too inappropriate for their child to watch. The same goes for a radio station. If the song has inappropriate language or themes in the song, a parent has the authority to change the station if they feel it is best for their child. So why shouldn't a parent be able to control and protect their own child from what they read in school? If it's deemed constitutional, then a parent should have that authority. Some material in books may be a bad influence to younger children or might just be too inappropriate for them. If a teacher would be dismissed for reading certain material allowed in class, and a child would be suspended for reading it in a cafeteria, why should text like that be available for young students to read in school? Young children are being exposed to foul language, sexual themes, racism, violence, political bias, religious afflictions, and other offensive material from books in their public schools every day. But young children might not be mature enough to handle it, at least not yet. Lori Taylor, mother of two, states, "I'd venture to say that 99.999% of parents, grandparents, and citizens wouldn't want their 11-year-olds being exposed to the shock slop I was reading earlier this week. Just because I might write a less than mediocre book that exploits the F word for gross shock value every other sentence and describes every possible sexual activity in detail doesn't mean it has to be available to kids on library shelves in the public school system, does it?" Lori points out that 11-year-olds that probably don't even know what the F word means are repeatedly reading it over and over, wondering what it means and possibly adding it to their own vocabulary. This not only could lead to bad habits, but something even worse, suspension. In Channelview, Texas, The Adventures of Super Diaper Baby by George Beard, Harold Hutchins, Dave Pilkey was removed from grade schools after parents complained when their 6-year-old was suspended for calling a classmate a cuckoo head. Imagine what would happen if a first grader said the F word in class. This could result in a talk with the principal, a scolding from their parents, and maybe even a suspension. And the worst part is, the child would have no idea it was bad. I mean, they'd only read it in a book after all. Many may think that if a parent doesn't want their kid to read a book, then they should just read it themselves instead of getting rid of the books for everyone. But that's not the case. The average movie length is about 2 hours long. Adults can take 2 hours out of their day to watch a movie before their child does. It's harmless. But reading a book before their child does, on the other hand, could take multiple days, depending on how fast you read. Banning books from schools easily solves this problem. If all inappropriate books were banned from schools, a parent wouldn't even have to worry about reading a book before their child does. Plain and simple. If books were banned, no parent would have to stress out about their child's innocence or behavior. It'd be one less thing they would have to worry about. Harmful, offensive, and inappropriate books should and need to be banned for the safety of our children.
My opponent may say that books need to be banned because it shields younger children from experiencing inappropriate content. But I disagree. Books do not need to be banned to shield younger children from inappropriate content because the majority of books are banned at the high school level. This is significant because banning books at the high school level means it's not banned at the younger level for younger children. This being said, banning books to shield younger children from inappropriate content is quite useless because the majority of books are banned at the high school level, meaning younger children don't experience them. Therefore, even though my opponent says books need to be banned to shield younger children from inappropriate content, I disagree because the majority of books are banned at the high school level. My opponent also states that books introduce themes such as racism, profanity, etc. to younger children. It's better that books do this than strangers, because if books are introducing these inappropriate themes, then parents and teachers can then control how students perceive them. This being said, teachers and parents are able to teach students that racism, profanity are bad instead of them hearing it from strangers and thinking that it's good, because if you hear an adult say something and you're a child, you're going to think that's good, because if an adult can say it, why can't you? Reading it in a book then gives parents and teachers the opportunity to teach children that this is bad. Therefore, even though my opponent states that books should be banned to shield younger children from profanity and racism, I disagree, because it's better they read it in a book than hear it from a stranger.